I asked this morning whether there were any suggestions yet around polling, that anything's moved in the polls since the calling of the general election. But then I thought, let's have a quick look at those betting exchanges, because sometimes betting odds start giving you some slight indications about the way the market, and maybe the market of voters, is moving. So John, one of our brilliant producers, our output editor, did put together a few facts and figures. What's he come up with, Camilla?
He's come up with the idea that a Labour majority is still an 85% chance. But shortening odds indicate that some believe that this election could be closer than most polls indicate. Conservative majority is at just a 2% chance. Although if I was a Conservative Party campaign reporters, I'd say it isn't 0%. That's quite interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the other point as well.
Too.
Do Farage in a second, but I think the other point that John's put here is that no overall majority was the big mover on one of the exchanges. The FocalData data. This idea that the polls could be tighter than we imagine, I think is just worth us keeping an eye on.
Also, I think turnout was so low in the locals that could change the dynamic of things. Yesterday's announcement by Nigel Farage means Reform are now odds-on to win. How many seats do you think, Kamal?
10.
0.
Excellent.
So there's a 71% chance. Now you can hear some giggling, some not giggling. You can't hear giggling.
You can hear giggling.
No, it's a 0% chance, which Ben Butcher, who joins us now from our data team, finds quite amusing. Dominic Penna, political correspondent turned political statistician. Easy for me to say, political statistician extraordinaire. We're joined by 2 resident Telegraph statos. Do you mind if I call you that? Am I suggesting you're
statos, data nerds? I'll take anything. That's absolutely fine.
Okay, brilliant.
It overestimates my ability to add up.
Dom, we know about journalists and their problems adding up. Thank God Kamal is here who can count. Shall we talk about this brilliant piece of data that you've put together, Ben, on the 8 seats which could hold the key to the election? Where are they and why do they?
So we've been, between me and Dom, we've kind of pulled together a few seats that we think are interesting and could play a big part in this election. The first one is entirely statistically based for me. We've obviously just heard about the kind of swings that are needed for Labour. They may be a little bit less than what's been suggested. But the one number that goes around a lot is 12.7, and that is the swing needed for Labour to secure Buckingham and Bletchley. It's a new constituency, but the 2 seats who kind of bring it together have never voted Labour since 1966. And so that 12.7 swing for that constituency would make a big moment for that seat. I think it's interesting because it represents that kind of southern area where if you start seeing Labour picking up those seats, the map will very quickly start turning red throughout the night.
It's blue wall, isn't it? It's
exactly.
Not far from me, Buckingham and Bletchley.
But Ben, so just to be clear, this is at the moment. If we had a vote share that was similar to 2019, this would be solid Conservative territory, even though it's a new seat. Yeah,
absolutely. So the Press Association basically took the new seats and they did some very clever data analysis and just gave us a rough idea of what the vote shares would have been in those new seats, which is really helpful for data journalists like myself to kind of work out where the seats are going to be.
Dom, tell us why Michael Gove may soon be back in a nightclub in Aberdeen, dancing
drowning his sorrows
in commiseration at his own political career.
Yes, the Housing Secretary's natural habitat if his previous forays into the discotheques of Aberdeen are anything to go by. But the Cabinet Minister may soon be an ex-Cabinet Minister. His constituency of Surrey Heath, again in 2019, a very big Tory majority of around 18,000, so pretty much 35%. But the Liberal Democrats, as pod their offensive in the so-called blue wall, made up of about 40 true blue heartland seats, which in 2019 it would have been unthinkable that they were challenging for any of those seats. But these are seats with more sort of socially liberal Tories, people who are still upset by Partygate, by, for example, the sewage scandal, which we've written a lot about here at the Telegraph. And there is, as there is in many seats, a very strong mood for change, and all the projections show that Gove's seat of Surrey Heath is a bit of a toss-up. He could be on his way out.
Portillo moment for him, or Jeremy Hunt.
Now, Camilla, we haven't spoken that much about the Lib Dems, and we are going to be writing that. A wrong, maybe not a wrong, is it? But we're going to be rebalancing that, Camilla, over time. Sorry, Camilla just done.
Depends how
For
much
those
you want to
watching on
talk about the Lib
YouTube,
Dems.
you can see Camilla's face response to even discussing the Lib Dems. But we are going to be discussing the Lib Dems in more detail because
If we
we're a
have
very
to, yeah.
fair-minded set of Daily Tea presenters. But Dom, I asked this question yesterday as well of Kelly Beaver, who's the chief executive of Ipsos. But Dom, how well are the Lib Dems doing at the moment? What do they need to do to really have a victorious night? And how dangerous are they for the Conservatives?
One of the great mysteries of this Parliament, with all the scandals that have affected the Conservatives, the anti-Tory vote, is that the Lib Dems haven't benefited more. They continue to poll at around 10% of the vote, which is basically where they were under Joe Swinson, who had that disastrous campaign in 2019. However, they are set to benefit. They are on track to win perhaps 30 or 40 seats that they didn't win last time out, not because they've particularly done anything extraordinary, but because the Tories have collapsed. A lot of Tory voters at the moment, unless Rishi Sunak can turn things around, are minded to stay at home.
Can I just say, the first election, what do you call it? Not poster.
Klaxon, what are you doing
No,
here? You're
you
holding
know,
a
one
fist
of
up. For
those
those on
signs.
audio, Camilla is holding a fist up in the
What
air,
do you
but I'm
call
not
it?
sure what that
Election
means.
sign outside your house. Is there a special name for that?
Yes, those boards.
Placard. Maybe it's
Placard.
placard. Thank
Someone
you,
just
Louisa.
said
the
Thank
yellow
you
and
so
the
much.
orange
Yeah.
ones you're talking about.
Yeah, so the big orange ones.
Yeah.
I spotted
Winning here.
I spotted the first placard last night coming back from work in my village, and it was Lib Dems. Now, I tell you what, say what you like about Sir Ed Davey, and many people do, or they just don't bother because he's so anonymous in the whole political scene right now, apart from having denied Alan Bates, the post office champion, a meeting all those years ago. Say what you like about the leadership. On the ground, the Oranges, they are effective.
Yep.
And I
Good local
witnessed,
campaigns.
I
This-
witnessed what they did in Chesham and Amersham, and they could repeat that across the country, to be fair to them.
And this is what you're seeing in local elections. In the most recent ones we had, you saw the big fight back coming from the Liberal Democrats. I think you're right. The Liberal Democrats aren't being spoken about at the moment. Maybe it is because of their polling. They're polling just a little bit less than Reform at the moment. But the MRP polling, which is the big multi-constituency polling that we've seen, has them jumping up to 49 seats the next election.
grief.
So they're just behind Reform, but jumping back to almost where they were in 2010, which is an extraordinary return. And I think it is places like the second seat, which we kind of looked at, was North Norfolk, which is a old Liberal Democrat seat, Norman Lamb, a constituency man who represents that area. He even managed to survive the 2015 massacre of the Liberal Democrats. And I think a big thing that Liberal Democrats have on their side and managed to bypass the first past the post system is that they are very, very good local constituency MPs. They
Yeah.
understand their local areas
Yeah.
very well.
They get the bins out.
Exactly.
They fill the potholes.
Exactly.
Not bad local politics. So you should go to telegraph.co.uk to look at those 8 seats. As you say, we've been through Surrey Heath, we've been through Buckingham and Bletchley and North Norfolk. Dom, you've got Gillingham there as well, which of course was Keir Starmer's first stop on his election campaign. So Gillingham is one of those seats we should be watching.
Exactly. And again, ordinarily, this has been a true blue, safe Conservative seat for a long time now. And the local MP is the fairly anonymous Raymond Chishti, who
Oh, hang
ran...
on. We all remember his successful leadership bid that lasted all of 3 minutes.
Yes, who ran a memorably amusing leadership campaign to replace Boris Johnson in 2022, which, needless to say, didn't quite work out for him, other than going viral. But other than that, Chishti is sort of a fairly typical MP of a fairly safe Conservative seat. And the fact that, again, with a majority of about 15,000, the fact that Keir Starmer parked Labour's tanks on that particular lawn, launching his campaign there, shows the scale of Labour's ambition. And if they are able to turn majorities of around 15,000, we're in for what could be a very, very impressive night for Labour. Equally, if Labour do fall short in places like Gillingham, that would be a sign that Sir Keir Starmer hasn't connected with a lot of those traditional Tory voters who perhaps he would hope to win over. So if they win Gillingham, it is a sign of maybe Labour doing better than we expect. If they fail to do so, it does open up the possibility that Labour could underperform across the board.
So 2 things we need to do, Camilla, before election night. Make sure we've got the timings of the declarations for these brilliant 8 seats that you two and your teams have identified. Second point, we need to make sure that we are following Reform and, hold your horses, Camilla, the Lib Dems, and hold even more of your horses, Camilla, the Greens. We need to follow it because
can we divide that Labour up?
We will be no, but we will be. It will have a high impact on whatever the Labour majority may or may not be, or whether we are approaching a hung parliament. Will be dependent on the performance of those 3 parties
and George Galloway's Workers' Party.
Yes,
if
of
he
course.
tables more candidates, particularly in the north. Dom, sorry, should we talk about the departures? They're up to the record of 75. Sorry, when was it 75, Dom?
So just as I came into the studio to record this, we had a 75th MP, Greg Clark, a former cabinet minister, confirming that he will not be standing for the Tories at the next election. And I believe 9 or 10 just since Rishi Sunak called this snap summer poll, having intended to stagger their departures over the summer, expecting an autumn election. Tory MPs have now almost been bounced into all quitting at the same time, which is not a good look for the government.
That 75, sorry, that's back to those
97.
the number that have...
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, is it 97?
It's 1997 was the record number, I believe, of Tory people saying I'm going at the next election, and we've reached that number literally in the last half hour. I think
things can only get better provided I'm out of office. This is sad. One of them is John Redwood, who's been in office since the dawn of time. I think he was elected in 1987, like David Davis, who was in the other day. And that's because the Lib Dems are sniffing around Wokingham. Could go from Wokingham to Woke under the yellows, Dom.
Exactly. This is another of the blue wall seats that the Liberal Democrats are targeting in much the same way as they're targeting Michael Gove's constituency. And again, it would have just been unheard of a couple of years ago that someone like John Redwood would basically decide to pack up. I guess that does show the difference in terms of where he is and where the Conservative Party is on issues like immigration, net zero,
the economy.
Exactly.
He's spent the last 5 years calling for tax cuts, to be fair. He's probably a bit bored of it.
I wonder if he's learned how to sing the Welsh national anthem yet, but anyway.
Do you know how to sing the Welsh national anthem?
But I wasn't the Welsh secretary.
No, that's a really good point. And then this has made me sad because we were only talking about him the other day, Craig McKinley, who returned to Westminster with a fanfare on prosthetic limbs on Wednesday, has now said he's not going to fight South Thanet. Why not, Dom?
So, again, on account of Rishi Sunak calling the election a lot earlier than anyone had expected, Craig McKinley has decided that perhaps he would have recovered in time, sort of mentally and physically, to get to where he wanted to get to. It was his intention to stand again, and there was a very moving scene in the GB News documentary when he said, "The bionic MP, that's what I want to be," and inspire people. And regardless of party politics, that is a man who has the respect of all 649 of his MP colleagues.
Yes, he does.
And there's no other politician you can really say that about. His recovery has been extraordinary, but because the election is now going to be in July rather than October or November, which I think most of Westminster was expecting, Craig McKinley has just decided, I don't quite have the strength yet at this particular time.
Whoever is in power should commission him to do a report on prosthetics in the NHS or something similar. Because imagine being out of work, having gone through what he's gone through for the last 6 months.
After he suffered from such a devastating bout of sepsis, it was amazing that he'd got back into Parliament at the time he did. As you say, Camilla, we were praising him and celebrating that. But it shows, Dom, doesn't it, the real people impact of Rishi Sunak's decisions. But Camilla, let's put that out there as an idea that person, Craig McKinley needs to be commissioned to do a piece of work like that. That's an excellent idea. Dom and Ben, thank you so much. You are going to join us regularly on this journey to July the 4th and then July the 5th.
Absolutely. And if you ever need any statistics, we're sat just down there. Come and get us some real...
Ben, we always need statistics.
I'll send you a stat of the day then.
Thank you so much.
Good idea.